Welcome back to our channel, guys. Today we will be recapping Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. Spoiler alerts, enjoy and take care. The movie starts with Gwen Stacy reminiscing about her experiences with Miles Morales and how similar they are. She claims that he has been her only friend since the death of Peter Parker. She remembers that her dad thinks Spider-Woman killed Peter and is on a hunt for her. She keeps drumming hard as she is lost in her thoughts when the rest of her band members stop her. She's surprised that they finished the song. While she was still drumming, they asked her what is wrong with her, but she refuses to share her feelings with them and leaves. She thinks in her head that due to her other life as Spider-Woman, she has to stay alone to avoid getting people hurt. She gets home to meet her dad, who is cooking. He asks how her day went and she tells him that she quit the band and then goes into her room. Her dad follows her and tells her that he is doing all he can to catch Spider-Woman, but Gwen tells him that they are not even sure that Spider-Woman killed Peter. Her dad, however, insists that she did, stating that she ran from the scene of the crime. He asks Gwen for a hug, which she gives him. But at the same time, a call comes in to Captain Stacy about the vulture causing mayhem at the art museum. He tells Gwen that he loves her and then heads to the museum. Gwen also suits up and swings behind him. Police officers are stationed around the museum. Captain Stacy drives in and is preparing the officers to enter the museum. He also tells them to look out for Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman webs the officers and Captain Stacy to their cars and goes into the art museum. She is attacked by a vulture, but to her surprise, that isn't the vulture from her universe. She manages to land a few blows, but soon enough the vulture turns the tables on her, and before he could scratch her, someone webs the vulture and starts to fight it. She is surprised to see another Spider-Man. He introduces himself as Miguel O Hara, and together they try to fight the vulture who keeps destroying the art in the museum. Miguel calls for backup and a pregnant Spider-Woman on a motorcycle arrives and they defeat the vulture. Gwen compliments the Spider-Woman named Jessica Drew. They also prevents a helicopter from crashing into people in the museum with their webs. Gwen, who takes most of the weight of the helicopter, is exhausted and staggers around in the building. Captain Stacy comes into the building and points his gun at Gwen in an attempt to arrest her when she removes her mask, revealing her identity to her dad. Captain Stacy is shocked to see that his daughter is Spider-Woman, but still insists on arresting her despite her pleas that she did not kill Peter Parker. Miguel uses his web to disarm Captain Stacy and imprison him with web technology. Jessica begs Miguel to let Gwen come with them, and eventually he gives her a watch so that she can travel with them to another universe, and she thinks about it. In New York, Miles Morales fights a villain who claims to be his nemesis. At the store, the villain names himself the Spot and is a bit difficult for Miles to handle, but eventually he manages to capture him. Miles heads for the guidance counselor office at his school as his parents are waiting for him and are getting quite agitated because of his tardiness. He gets to the meeting and they question him about the reason he's late, but he eventually settles down to go on with the meeting with the guidance counselor. They discuss his future and he says that he wants to study quantum mechanics at a university outside New York. His parents disagree, but he makes his point that they have to let him grow. Outside the office, Miles sees Spot, who has freed himself from the webbing around him, and goes out telling his parents that he has to go. Officer Morales also receives a call about a robbery and heads out, leaving his wife. Miles suits up and fights the Spot. Their fights go from one portal made by Spot to another, and eventually they fall into a construction site where the Spot tells him that the spider that bit Miles was brought to their universe by him, and that when Miles destroyed the collider while fighting Kingpin, he was in the room and was transformed into what he is now. In a bit of rage, he charges at Miles but ends up kicking himself into his own portal. Officer Morales talked to Spider-Man about his son, not knowing he is talking with Miles. Miles advises him to let his son spread his wings and swing away. Spot discovers that he can travel across universes. Later that night, the Morales throws a party to celebrate the promotion of Officer Morales to captain. Miles misses the speech as he's out fighting crimes, but manages to buy cakes. He arrives at the party late and his parents question him. This leads to Miles getting grounded. He goes to his room, plugs his headphones in, puts them over his head, and lies on his bed. A portal opens and Gwen Stacy jumps into his room. She hugs him and checks out Miles' room as Miles tries to hide some of his stuff. She sees a sketch pad with a lot of drawings of her on his bed and tells him that she misses him as well. She tells him that they should go and hang out, but Miles tells her that he is grounded. Eventually he agrees and he suits up. Together they swing around the city and show off to themselves the new tricks they've picked up. They also capture a thief. In the middle of their hangout, Gwen sneaks to a corner and releases a robot spider from her watch to monitor the spot and then goes back to Miles. Captain Morales and his wife go to check on Miles in his room but find Gwen's sweater, and his dad yells out that Miles will be grounded for 6 months. They hang out on a tall building to talk. Gwen outlines that she joined a new organization and made some friends such as Hobie. She also tells Miles that in every universe Gwen and Spider-Man date each other, which prompts Miles to want to hold her hand. But she ends her sentence by saying that in every universe it doesn't have a good outcome, which makes Miles retract his hand. They went back to the party and had some food while Miles checks out Gwen's multiversal traveling watch and wonders why he wasn't picked as well. She tells him that it is a small elite group. Captain Morales and his wife come to them and Miles introduces Gwen. Gwen's watch starts beeping and she tells them that she has to go and then leaves, shaking Miles' hand. Miles is sad and his mother gestures to her husband to leave them alone. While she talks to Miles, she asks him what's up with him and he almost confesses to being Spider-Man but apologizes for coming late to the party. His mother tells him to go after Gwen after seeing that he seems sad. He thanks his mother and goes after Gwen. Gwen arrives at a blown-out building and Miles turns invisible and follows her. She uses her watch to watch the reenactment of the event and sees Spot absorbing the black holes in a collider and eventually being dragged into it, leading to an explosion. She panics as Jessica's hologram hovers over her and asks for a progress report using Lila. She discovers that Spot escaped from Gwen and asks where Gwen was. She tells her that she was with Miles and begs her not to tell Miguel, and Jessica gives her a second chance. Lila gets Spot's location and Jessica tells Gwen that she is giving her 1 hour to fix things and that she will contact the local Spider-Man in the universe to help her. Gwen looks out at New York and says goodbye before heading into a portal. Miles watches all this happen and also follows her. They fall into another universe in a city called Mumbaton. While fighting with the Spot, Miles saved Gwen from falling and she asked why he followed her. They are discussing this when Paviter Prabhakar arrives and introduces himself as the Spider-Man of that universe. Together they find the Spot and try to fight him, but he escapes and they followed him into a building where he locks them out with a force field. Miles tries unsuccessfully to absorb the force field as Spot fires up the collider. Hobie arrives and breaks the force field. Gwen and Paviter Prabhakar are happy to see Hobie while Miles considers him strange. Spot absorbs the collider's wormhole, leading to an explosion, and Miles sees a vision that he can't decipher. Spot says that he will take everything from Miles before entering the portal. Miles, Hobie, Gwen and Paviter Prabhakar run out of the building as it collapses, saving people. Miles saves Captain Singh and a kid as Paviter Prabhakar is busy holding a bus that has Gayatri Singh, his girlfriend, and some other people in it. The crowd thanks Miles, Hobie, Gwen, and Paviter. The Spider team arrives and tries to stop a black hole that has started growing. Miles introduces himself to Jessica and she tells him that her boss wants to see him. Hobie, Gwen and Miles go into a portal. Miles is awestruck by the number of Spider-Man at the Spider Society headquarters and also by the size. Hobie tries to get him to leave the Spider Society, asking Miles the reason he wants to join. While picking up some gadgets along the way, Jessica gives Miles a temporary watch to stop him from glitching and they show him around the headquarters. Miles meets Spider-Bite, a Spider-Woman whose avatar works at the Spider Society headquarters. Miles eventually meets Miguel. Miguel expresses his anger about Miles saving Captain Singh and says that it was a canon event. Peter Parker comes in and tells Miguel to cut Miles some slack. Miles is happy to see Peter and Peter also introduces him to his daughter, Mayday, who also has spider powers. Miguel explains the concept of the Spiderverse to Miles and tells him that some events have to happen and those events are called canon event. He tells him that if enough canon events are disrupted it could lead to the destruction of the Spiderverse. He then tells him of how he tried to live the life of his variant in another universe which led to the destruction of that universe. He tells him that he created the Spider Society for this reason. Miles remembers his vision of the Spot about to kill his dad. He says that his dad is now a captain. Miguel tells him that his dad has to die and that it is a canon event. Miles insists on going to save his dad, but Miguel captures him while Peter and Gwen try to talk Miguel into releasing Miles. Hobie signals to Miles to use his palm and Miles does. He absorbs the electricity and disperses it, freeing himself, and runs out of the room. All the Spider-Man tries to catch Miles, but he jumps out of the building as Hobie leaves. Gwen tries to catch Miles, but he looks at her with disappointment in his eyes while he rips her web off and he escapes. Peter, with Mayday on his chest, tries to explain the reason with Miles, but he doesn't listen. Miguel tracks Peter's location and finds Miles. He beats Miles and tells him that he is an anomaly and that he is the only reason Peter died in his universe. He says that Miles wasn't meant to be a Spider-Man and shouldn't have been bitten. Miles notices that Gwen and Peter know about what Miguel is saying, which angers him. He uses his electricity power to zap Miguel and tells him that he just lured all of the Spider-Man out of the headquarters and then jumped off the train they were fighting on. He says goodbye to Gwen, but Miguel jumps after him. Invisible Miles activates the Go Portal machine and scans his eye to send himself back home when Spider-Bite notices a problem with the machine and tries to fix it. Miguel arrives and tries to stop Miles from escaping, and he also yells at Spider-Bite to stop him, but Miles looks at her and she allows the machine to send Miles home. Miguel sends Gwen back to her universe, saying that Miles' escape is her fault. Miguel takes Ben and Jessica along with him and goes to Miles' universe. Gwen and her dad finally talk and he quits being the captain of the police department, saying that Gwen is his greatest achievement and gives her a gift Hobie dropped by, which is a watch. Gwen uses the watch to open a portal and tells her dad that she will come back, then enters the portal. She ambushes Ben and takes his watch. Miles makes it back home and reveals to his mom that he is Spider-Man, but his mom doesn't know who Spider-Man is and takes the confession as a joke, then leaves his room. Miles glitches and he realizes that he is in another universe. Miles' uncle Aaron comes through the room and Miles was happy to see him alive and hugs him and says that he missed him, which surprises Aaron. Gwen arrives at Miles' room but doesn't see him and hears his parents talking. She senses that he is in another universe. Jessica also spies on Miles' parents. Gwen comes out of Miles' room and assures his parents that she will find him. Miles and Aaron go to the roof and he sees a photo of his dad on a wall, indicating that he is dead in this universe. But before he can fully process this, Miles is knocked out cold by a strange figure. He regains consciousness tied to his uncle's punching bag in his apartment. Shortly afterwards, the Prowler approaches Miles, then slowly removes his mask, revealing he is no other than Miles Morales from this universe, with cornrows and looking cold as ice in a world without a Spider-Man. He has no regard for his dad from another universe dying. Back in his home universe, the Spot makes his entrance, having his sights on Officer Morales. Gwen gathers her own spider variants, which swing into action to save Miles and ultimately his dad. This great movie is set to be continued. Thank you for watching, guys. Please remember to subscribe to this channel for more animated recaps.